Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we explore the strengths we have because of our sensitivity and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there. To the creatives, healers, sensitives, and deep thinkers, how you doing? I've been working in my office for a while, so my voice is a little bit froggy. I want to talk to you today about two themes, and I have a story that I'm going to tell you, but the two themes that we're going to be talking about is the wounding that many of us have experienced being in groups from the time that we were kids, maybe being the last person picked on a team. I was just talking with a friend the other day who went to a camp, and you had to be able to do these skills independently before you could go out on the water by yourself. And she was the only person that couldn't. And so the whole group couldn't go out independently. They had to have a counselor with them, and how much that impacts her today. I mean, I have this thing, and I'll tell you about it, that I don't like people to wait for me. And so I tend to be chronically early for a number of reasons. And so there are ways that we have been wounded in groups, getting worried that people are going to get angry at us, or what if, we take time doing something and then we change our mind, and how that shows up today and kind of how we can work with that. The other thing is this concept that Dr. Elaine Aron talks about is having your foot on the gas pedal and your foot on the brake at the same time. I've heard that for years, but I never really understood what it meant until recently. Here's the deal. Like usual, you're going to hear a long, detailed kayak story. If you don't like the kayak stories, then you have a heads up right now. I do have to tell you that the end of the story ends with dolphins, and it's just magical, but you have to wait till the end or fast forward till the end to hear it. But again, the context is kayaks, but what I'm going to be talking about encompasses this concept of what happens in groups, about decision-making, about this need to want to rush forward on one hand, the foot on the gas pedal, and then the brake at the same time of, is this the right decision? Do I need to get more information? I talk to a lot of HSPs, and this is something that many of us really struggle with. So as y'all know, that I've decided that I wanted to go from my sit-on kayak to a sit-in kayak, a sea kayak. The advice that I got was to try a lot of different kayaks out. By the time you hear this all happened, today is Monday the 11th, and the culmination of the story ends on Sunday, October 10th. But by the time you hear this, it's going to be the first week in November. So just giving you a little timestamp on this. On Monday, October 4th, not that it matters to you, I tried out a fiberglass kayak, but we did the 6-mile paddle. It's amazing paddles that have a bent shaft. Because the shaft is bent, it's wiggly. Having had broken my wrist last April, it's just the easiest to grip, and it's super light. However, due to the supply chain shortage, I'm not even able to get a set of these paddles until March of 2022. And the person that let me use them is not selling them. In the bay, that was just amazing. The water was glassy. If you follow me on social media, I know I posted on Instagram. I think I posted on Facebook. Just amazing, amazing, amazing. And the paddle was just effortless. The challenge is that the person that I went out with, so some of the people that paddle in the group that I paddle with, I know one person listens to the podcast, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. So I'm going to give you some names. I'm not going to give you some names because it's about the concept, but I don't want to disparage anybody, and it's not being disparaging. But one of the people that I paddle with is very, very skilled. I trust this person incredibly, and this person is very conservative. Now, I'm conservative regarding skills and what I should and shouldn't be doing. We're not talking politics here. I tend to be pretty cautious myself, and what I find is because this person is so much more conservative, it feeds on my fear, and it doesn't really work well for me in certain situations. And at the end of this paddle, I said, so can I go ahead and rent any of the sit-in kayaks from the place that we launch from? And this person said, no, you shouldn't be paddling by yourself. And there was an ocean paddle coming up, and I asked, if I go with somebody else, can I use this larger sit-in kayak that I used? He's like, can you self-rescue if you fall out? And even though I did it that one time, I'm not super confident. So I'm like, no. I said, can I take my own kayak, my sit-on kayak? And he says, can you self-rescue? And although I've done it in shallow water, I don't feel confident. Like to me, I should be able to confidently do it under any circumstance. And I don't know that I can. I left feeling discouraged that I'm limited in, what I can paddle and where I can paddle. So Wednesday is this ocean paddle that I haven't done. And again, I've got one foot on the gas because I'm kind of excited and I want to go. But the break is like the group thing. I don't want to hold anybody back. I don't want to slow anybody up. What if I can't do it? What if I fall out of my boat? I mean, all of these things. What I did was I reached out to my paddling partner and asked her, do you think it's okay? Do you think I can go? Do you think I can keep up? And she's like, yes, you can. And if you need to turn back, I'm happy to go back with you, which just melted my heart. Again, with this wound of, I don't want to slow anybody down. I don't want to be the problem child. And to know that she had my back. I needed to go get Dramamine because I didn't have any, and I needed some non-drowsy Dramamine. So in the evening, my husband and I went up to local Target. They didn't have any. We drive to CVS. They don't have what I need. We go to Walgreens. They don't have what I need. And what I want is the non-drowsy Dramamine, and they have some with ginger in it. So I look on my phone. If you're in San Diego, we drove to Mission Valley, just a little bit further. But again, this group thing is coming up. Now, my husband doesn't get annoyed with me. He's incredibly patient. I'd probably get annoyed with him. I don't know. And I'm thinking, I'm tired. We have to go to another store. What if I get the Dramamine and then I decide not to go in the morning? Is he going to be mad at me? Is he getting annoyed with me? And I just had to ask him. And he's like, he's fine. I think we were just both tired. So we go to Target where they're supposed to have the non-drowsy Dramamine with ginger. And of course, they don't have it. And they don't have any non-drowsy Dramamine. So my best choice at this point is the less drowsy Dramamine. And they've got some ginger hard candies. I go ahead and get those. We come home. It's dark. It's after 7:30, which is the time I like to put my pajamas on. We still have to put my kayak on the car. I get all of my stuff ready and I'm ready for the next day. Now I have to meet her at 6:30 in the morning. I wake up early. I don't get out of bed to be somewhere at 6:30, but I get up in the morning. Again, I don't want anybody waiting with me. Now, the main group launches from the dock, and Brenda and another paddler launch from Bahia Point because they need to launch from the beach. It doesn't matter why. I meet Brenda and the other paddler at the beach. I get there first. Again, this is my wounding. Don't want to hold anybody up. And what I find is that if I feel like people are waiting on me, it makes me anxious and I forget what I need. And I've gone out on a paddle before and forgotten things because I get distracted when people are around and I forget what I need. So I get there before anybody else does. It's dark, but it works. Before I left, I also made sure to take my Dramamine. I've got my ginger candies in my life jacket. We launch, we go to the meeting area, we wait for everybody to meet us there, and then we paddle down the channel. Now, in earlier episodes, I told you that the channel made me nervous and that I didn't like my boat kind of fishtailing and the swells. Wasn't even thinking about this time. Well, what I can tell you is paddling a sit-on kayak when everybody has 16-foot sea kayaks and great paddles. It's like me driving an old jalopy up the mountains and everybody's in race cars and, or like the big RV that's on the right side of the road that's just chugging along. One of the women was incredibly kind. We were paddling together and she's like, don't work so hard. You're going to tire yourself out. But if I don't paddle hard, I can't keep up with everybody because my boat is wider, it's heavier. It's kind of a dilemma for me. And my concern is that if I slow down, then I'm going to fall behind. Once we hit the ocean, I feel a little bit queasy, not too bad. So I pop a ginger candy and I seem to be fine. I'm paddling for a while. I'm doing okay. Have another little wave of nausea. So I take a ginger candy. This time it doesn't quite go away. And I start to feel seasick. And it sucks because I've been paddling for a while and I felt okay. So why is it that it takes me a while to get out in the ocean and then I get seasick? I don't know. I tell Brenda that I'm not really feeling well and that I'd like to turn back. She's fine. She turns around with me. The group actually turns around pretty shortly after that. The thing is, once I get seasick, it really takes it out of me. I just do not have energy. We paddle back, but I'm going much slower than I did going out because I'm not feeling well. The rest of the group did catch up with us. When we got through the channel, I told Brenda and the other paddler, please go ahead. I'm fine. The last time that I had paddled, that Brenda and I went out in the ocean, I got seasick. It was the same thing. And I wanted her to get a good paddle in. And I just limped limped in my kayak back to where we landed. And I texted her to let her know that I got back okay. So I said the same thing this time. But for some reason, I was able to pretty much keep up with Brenda and the other paddler. We got back to where we launched from. The two of them were so sweet. They carried my kayak from the beach up to where my car is. That day we did 6.4 miles. So I went home and cleaned up, and I had clients. My first client is a therapist. And when I sat down to meet with this client, I could not sit still. And I was yawning, I was fidgeting, and I interrupted and said, I noticed that I'm really fidgety and I'm yawning. I explained what happened. I asked how she was doing. She was fine. I checked in with her a few times to make sure, I felt like I was attending to her, but I just was so physically uncomfortable. And the aftermath of getting seasick, it just, like I said, it takes a toll on me. She was totally fine. We finished our session. I had another client in an hour, and I have a bed in my office, and I laid down and slept, woke up, saw the second client, let her know what was going on. I did better that time, finished with that client, laid down, took another nap, and then had another client and let her know what was going on and did better. I check in with my clients if I'm impaired, and if they feel like they're not getting the best of me, I will reschedule an appointment, but it's never happened. But this is how I work with clients, that if I'm having things going on, they're going to notice. And I want them to know that it's about me and not them. I was really tired that evening at about 7:30. Well, a little bit earlier than that, I went into, my son's old bedroom. We have a TV in there. And I just wanted to stretch out. And about 7:30, I couldn't stay awake anymore, and I fell asleep. And when I woke up, it was 10 o'clock, and the dog gets seizure meds at 9. And if we don't give her seizure meds, she has seizures. So I kind of jumped up and went and checked the med box. And my husband, I was out so hard, I didn't hear him come in. He took her out to go to the bathroom before bedtime and then put her back on the bed. I went back to Daniel's room and just crawled back into bed and slept till probably 6:30 the next morning. Like I said, it just really takes it out of me when I get seasick. After this paddle in my kayak and just having to work so hard, it just became clear that I really needed to get a sea kayak. And so here's that foot on the gas. I got to get a sea kayak. I got to get a sea kayak. The break is I need to try out these different kayaks. I'm not used to them. How do I find them? I have to have somebody go with me. And so I kind of go into overwhelm with this. I continued to look online for kayaks. I had an idea of some of the things that I wanted. And the other challenge that I had is getting a kayak that is able to do things that I don't have the skills for. And the sea kayaks are a little tippier. You want to learn how to roll them, the 360. Not everybody does. But it's kind of a good idea if you're going to be in this kayak in the bay or in the ocean, that if something happens, you want to know how to take care of yourself. But how do I test out a kayak that can edge and turn and do all these things, but I don't have the skill set for it? And that just felt really like I felt stuck. So here are the things that I know to do when this happens is I need to get information. I need to find somebody that I can talk to. I need to find a place where I can get information. And then I need to see what the next indicated step is. So I reached out to a paddler who has the two boats that I was interested in, and he offered to let me use them. And because I was seasick coming back on Wednesday, I'm like, forget it. I called and asked him some questions, and it helped me decide, do I want a fiberglass boat? Do I want a plastic boat? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? We talked about the couple boats that I was considering. I was looking online, trying to find a fiberglass boat or whatever I could find. I found a fiberglass boat, but I don't know how to evaluate a used boat, and it's not one that I was looking at. Again, what do I do when I get stuck? Resources. I reached out to another paddler. I texted and said, hey, I found this boat that's kind of up in your area. Are you willing to go look at it with me? I'm happy to drive and pick you up, and then we can go look at it. And he called me back and said he's not really comfortable assessing used boats. Totally respect that. And I said, I'm really happy to ask questions, and I feel really comfortable that you feel comfortable saying no, that you're not comfortable with it. So we had a really nice chat. So again, getting information, that's something that really helps me. Throughout this, somebody had the boat that I was interested in buying for sale, and I just wasn't sure if I wanted that boat. Did I want to try and find another boat? So again, I want a kayak, foot on the gas pedal, the brakes. Somebody has this kayak, and what am I holding up for? On Friday, we were supposed to meet so that I could paddle this boat and buy it. I got the checkbook, I got everything ready, and it had rained that night. and we weren't able to paddle. The boat that I want to get is it's described as a playful boat. I'm not so sure that I'm a playful kayaker. Is this boat for me? I don't know. What we decided to do is we obviously couldn't paddle in the rain, so we were going to touch base later on in the day. But there was this paddle coming up the next day at South Bay. Again, if you're from San Diego, we were launching from the Coronado Cays, and it was a 7 to 9 mile paddle. I've done the paddle before. It's gorgeous, but I'm not willing to use my sit-on kayak anymore. It just takes too much energy, and I just trusted that things would work out. So Steve and I are doing our grocery shopping at the commissary. Out of the blue, I did not say anything at all. This is another paddler who texts me and says, hey, you should reach out to Mike. I used his boat last week, and you should see if he can bring the boat for you to use tomorrow. And then I don't have a spray skirt. And she's like, and somebody else has a spray skirt they'll lend it to you. And I just hung up and put my hand over my heart and thought, the universe is really taking care of me. Like, I felt so loved and supported. Right before this, Steve said, what are you thinking about? I was thinking about two things. We just walked by some Oreos that was s'mores flavored. So I said, I'm thinking about Oreos that are s'mores flavored. And I'm thinking about, I don't have a kayak for tomorrow. And then I get this text out of the blue, and I hadn't talked to this paddler for a while. So I don't know what the universe was conspiring. It's synchronicity. When we got home, I reached out to Mike, who had the kayak, and asked if I could use it. And then I didn't hear from him. I had to go out and do some errands, and I just was trusting that things were going to be okay. And then I started to get nervous. So again, that kind of foot on the brake where, is this going to work? I called a friend and I said, I really want to buy the kayak today. I haven't tried it. I want to paddle tomorrow. I haven't heard from this other guy. I'm afraid about buying that whole thing of, I want to buy it, but am I being rash? Am I being impulsive? That foot on the gas, foot on the brake. And we talked about it. We talked about worst case scenario. I buy the boat. I hate it. It's a great boat. I can resell it. There's not a problem. I reach out to the seller. I text him and say, hey, I'd love to buy the boat. Can I come down and pay you and pick it up today? And I don't hear from him. So I'm sitting and not knowing again. I do get a call from the seller, and he says he really wants me to try the boat to make sure that I know it. He's someone I paddle with, so I get it. We're in this group, and if somebody does something and it irritates somebody else, it can really throw off the group dynamics. So I'm like, okay, I understand. So we make a plan to get together on Sunday, and he'll bring the boat and I'll try it out. I just let things go. And then I did hear from Mike, who said he was happy to bring his boat. And so it all worked out. So Saturday, I'm driving to Coronado. And just as I'm driving over the bridge, I just had this sense of awe and beauty. If you live in San Diego, if you've been in San Diego, driving over the Coronado Bridge, you can see the harbor, you can see the bay. The day couldn't have been more perfect. And then I was reminiscing, again, if you're from San Diego, you used to have to pay $1.20 to cross over into Coronado to pay off the debt of the bridge, but it was free coming back. And once they paid it off, they never charged us. So it's just being nostalgic. Again, I'm early. I don't even have a boat, but I wanted to make sure that I was there to help Mike if he needed any help. So I get there. Mike is already there. We unload. We have a lovely paddle. We do 7.7 miles. It was just gorgeous, peaceful, wonderful, loved it. We come home, I clean up, we need to go to Costco, and then the fatigue sets in. And here's the thing, that going from my sit-on kayak, and every time I'm using a new sit-in kayak, I'm using different muscles because I'm sitting in a different place. The seat is different. I've been told that the paddles that I have are too long, so I have a couple other sets of paddles. I brought them that day thinking it's going to be easier if I use the right set of shorter paddles. So I pick out a shorter set of paddles. And after we head off, I realize, oh, my long paddles are made of something that's very light, and these paddles are not light. And again, like, how would I know? I just keep hearing that my paddles are too long. And so I used the shorter paddles, and they were heavy, and I had to work hard. It was fine. So Sunday, I'm supposed to meet the seller who's got the kayak, and I'm planning to buy the boat. I wake up with a headache. I'm sore. I'm achy. Because I'm trying all these different kayaks, they don't have the back support that my kayak has. I'm a sloucher. I don't have a lot of core strength. I tend to push my chin way forward. So it's not uncommon that I'm very achy and headachy after I paddle because even though I have the ability to do it, I just don't have the form yet. I don't really like paddling 2 days in a row. I find it hard, but I really want to get this kayak. I'm driving to meet him and there's traffic. There's this bike event. The exit that I need to take off is closed. The beaches, it's very, very confusing. So I get off at an exit earlier. The other side is closed. I drive a far way out of my way so I can approach the exit southbound. There's an accident and it's blocked off. And this is in a very specific part and you can only reach it one way. So the seller and I are talking on and off throughout the morning, trying to figure out how we're going to get there. Eventually, I get there, he gets there, we're all good. I didn't feel stressed out about the traffic either. It's just like, here it is. But I did have this headache and I thought, this is just taking longer. We go out in the boat. I've already decided that I want it and I'm just feeling cautious. But I asked if we could go out to the channel because I want to experience what the boat is like when the water's a little bit rougher and rockier. The water was so clear that day. When you go down the channel, it has a jetty and you want to kind of stick close to the jetty, even though the rocks are there. It's a breaker from the wind. But there were Garibaldi, they're orange fish that, I don't know, the size of my hand. Tons of these bright orange Garibaldi. It was just amazing. I'm having a harder time steering the boat. My boat has a rudder. I'm very dependent on the rudder for steering. This boat doesn't have one. I've got to learn how to steer the boat. It's longer. It's about 1.5 feet longer than my boat. So there's lots of skills that I have to have that I don't have yet. I'm also trying to figure out, because I'm fatigued, I don't want to overdo it. And we go about 3/4 down the channel and then I tell him I'm ready to turn around. We go into this little bay area, Mariners Bay, if you're a San Diegan or you're familiar. We also stop to readjust the foot pegs. So if you're not familiar with kayaks, when you have a sit-in kayak, you've got foot pegs. And then you kind of, like if you were doing ballet, you kind of let your legs flop out to the side and there are thigh braces. And you want to be actively using your feet. When you stroke on the right, you push on the right foot peg. When you stroke on the left, you use the left foot peg. Your legs are actively engaged. They're pushing against the thigh braces. Your core is involved. Everything's involved. And I'm not used to this. And this is coming off a 7.7-mile paddle the day before. So I'm tired. And how do I take care of myself and be polite and yada, 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 yada. We go over to Mariners Bay. He shows me how to steer and how to turn the boat. We practice. I'm not very good. The wind blows me into this little sand thing and I kind of have to use my body like a worm to kind of get off of the sand and get back out in the water. It works out fine. We end up coming back to the docks. I'm able to get myself out of the boat without too much laughing. We put the boat on my car. We've got to adjust the saddle since this is a narrower boat. And I pay for the boat. And I'm happy, but I'm thinking I should be jumping up for joy. But I'm tired. This is the second day in a row that I've paddled. I'm tired. I had a headache this morning. I come home. We take the boat off the car. We take out both of my sit-on kayaks and all of the equipment that we have. I post them because I'm selling them. And then I post a birth announcement on social media announcing the new edition of my kayak with her weight, length, and name, which happens to be Blue Moon. And every Halloween, when my kids were growing up, the boys and my husband are really into Halloween, and we put out a lot of decorations. So I've got my new boat on the lawn. We've got it up on the sawhorses. I like to call them seahorses. Our neighbors are coming and going, and they're complimenting Steve on his lawn. And later on, when we take the dogs for a walk, I'm like, everybody's talking about your stupid decorations. Is anybody talking about my brand new kayak? No. So I was having a little envy that he got all the attention and my brand new kayak didn't get any attention, but we were fine about that. On Mondays, I paddle with Brenda. That's our day to paddle. Now, understand I've paddled 2 days in a row. I'm really sore. I'm using muscles I haven't used. I'm tired. I'm feeling afraid to paddle in the kayak alone. I text Brenda and I let her know, hey, I just want to let you know I'm really tired. I paddled 2 days in a row. I'm happy to meet you tomorrow, but if you're wanting a power paddle, I don't think I can do it. So if you want to paddle solo or if you want to meet and then take off, I'm totally fine with that. And she's just so sweet and accommodating. She was totally fine with meeting. And then I thought, well, what if she takes off? Should I be paddling by myself? So then I started to get a little bit nervous. We put the boat back on my car last night. This morning, again, that thing of I don't want anybody waiting for me. I get there first. I talked to Brenda about my fears and having this realization that I need somebody who's cautious, but is going to push me a little bit. And that when somebody is more cautious than I am, it feeds on my fear. And we talked about some of the concerns that I was having. And what she said is, I really shouldn't worry about paddling by myself. We talked about worst case scenario. I did order something called a paddle float and a bilge pump that should be arriving pretty soon so that if I take on water, I can bail it out. It just was really nice to get that encouragement from her. And so we head out in the boat and she asks how I'm doing. And I'm feeling cautious and I'm knowing that I can tip out. As we're heading towards the channel, I get this thought that I could fall out and I could drown. And then I was thinking about in episode 91, not bonus episode, but episode 91 with Shelly. It's called We're All in the Right Place at the Right Time. I recall when I was paddling my sit-on kayak ages ago, we were paddling across the bay and I had that same thought of I could fall out and drown. Once I recognized this, so this is mindfulness, it was amusing to me this is my catastrophic thinking. Oh, that's what this is. After a while, I didn't think about falling out and drowning in the bay because I got comfortable. And so I just used that same kind of reassurance with myself of this is what happens when things are new. Last week or the week before, I was worried going out in the channel because of the swells and the fishtailing. And that's not what I'm concerned about. Now I have new worries this week. That's okay. But recognizing the process and reassuring myself that this is my catastrophic thinking, it comes and goes. I work through it. These are the ways that we work through this stuff because I'll tell you, I'm having some fears. And if I let them take over me, I wouldn't paddle. I wouldn't be out there. I'd be too afraid of falling over. I'd be afraid of the swells. I'd be afraid of everything. And I don't want my fear to stop me. And I'm trying to figure out this way of how do I balance acknowledging what's going on, but doing what I need to do. We go out to the channel. I'm feeling, again, less concerned about the swells, but I am focused on the new boat and steering and trying to sit up. And because my legs have to be active and I'm trying to sit up straight and tuck my chin back so I don't get a headache. When we're about 3/4 down the way, she asked if I wanted to go out to the ocean. I'm I don't have stuff for seasickness. And if I get seasick, it just wrecks me. So no, thank you, not today. I did talk to my doctor last week and got a prescription for transdermal patch, a seasickness patch. I have to pick it up tomorrow. So hopefully the next time I go out in the ocean, I don't think I'm going to be ready on Wednesday. I could make a great recovery. And if I am, I'll do it. But I just don't want to push too much. I will have the seasickness patch. I did talk on Saturday to someone who gets seasick all the time. And we talked. And basically for her, nothing's worked. That's my hopeful inspiration. So when we came back, we went back to Mariner's Point. We did some paddling around. I was kind of tired, but I wanted to get a good paddle in. But here's the deal. When we came out of Mariner's Point, we saw these 2 dolphins. It was amazing. In the past, when I've seen dolphins, I see them briefly and then they disappear. These ones we followed for, I'd say maybe a half a mile. At one point, so it's playful for the dolphins. I don't think it was very much fun for the fish. But we saw the dolphin. We'd see the dolphin kind of bop a fish. We'd see the arc of the fish, and then we'd see the arc of the dolphin, and then we'd see the arc of the fish and the arc of the dolphin. We watched those 2 dolphins surface and go down and surface and go down, and they headed towards where our boats were. So we just kind of slowed and watched them. It was just magical. They were a little too far away to take a picture of with my phone. It's hard. I aim and point and hope that I get the video or the picture, but I can't really see. And because they'd go under for so long and then surface, I didn't even bother taking any pictures. But I have to tell you, it was just amazing seeing these dolphins. We came back to the beach and landed and kind of packed everything up. I did decide to soak in the tub today because I've just been really, really sore. This is the 3rd consecutive day of paddling. What I find is yesterday I had this headache and I get there and I do fine. And I don't know, I think we did a little under 5 miles this morning. So the take home for you is think about what are the things that come up for you around groups. It's about having to be prepared, having to be on time, not wanting to hold people up. Think about what those wounds are from our childhood and how do they show up today and are they serving you? I mean, I still have this thing about arriving early because I get too rattled if I feel like I have to rush. So I'm okay with that one. are there things that you're doing that are not serving you? And I know often, I'm 58 years old and I show up being concerned that people are going to get mad at me. And like, I'm a grown woman. And if somebody gets mad at me, they get mad at me. I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but I think we can look at, are there areas where you show up kind of disempowered out of this fear of something happening that happened to you when you were younger? And then the other part is with this, like, foot on the brake, foot on the gas, we often get overwhelmed. And the messages for me can be, if the foot is on the gas, like, I'm being too impulsive. I need to slow down. I need to be more cautious. And the foot on the brake is, you need to get more information. You need to research more. What if this doesn't work out? And how do we balance those two? And for me, part of it is getting information, reaching out to other people. With this whole paddling thing, as I've shared with you, that I've had people that had my back. They'll answer questions for me. When I reached out to one of the paddlers during the week, I said, like, I'm afraid I'm being annoying because I'm asking you questions. Like, I was feeling really disempowered because I felt so stuck and overwhelmed and can't make decisions. And I'm having to ask other people. And that's one of my wounds. Like, I'm going to annoy people. I just put it out there. And this paddler said, I love answering questions. This is stuff that I really care about. So for me, those are the ways that I work through it, is to get some information, reach out for support, figure out what my next step is. Because we can get in this stuck place where the depth of processing can really halt our movement forward. And how do we sit with it? And how do we kind of trust that we're going to be taken care of, figure out when we need to make a move and take care of ourselves? These are all things that we can learn to navigate. And, I sometimes hear people talk about how much they hate their traits, they hate the depth of processing. I really do believe 100% that we can learn to work with our traits. It means having support. We're not meant to do everything by ourselves. We're not supposed to be entirely independent. We need that interdependence. And other people feel good when we reach out and ask for help. I mean, how is it for you when people reach out to you and ask for support? If we've got wounding, we tend to not want to do that. We want it to be very independent, which is not, if it's working for you and you're happy and you've got the satisfying relationships, then keep doing what you're doing. But for many people, that's part of wounding, that hyper independence. I hope this has been helpful and entertaining. If you struggle with some of these things, if you struggle with feeling anxious or nervous, or you've got social anxiety, or you get anxious before you have a presentation, or you have to do something, you struggle in relationships or problems with boundaries, any of these things that I've talked about, parenting, executive functioning, I do have a couple of spots open, at least at this point when I record. You can always reach out to me. You can go to my website at unapologeticallysensitive.com. There's everything you need to know there. I hope you are doing well. When you hear this, we will be in November, getting close to Turkey Day if you're here in the States. If you're in Canada, happy Thanksgiving. That's already passed. And we're rolling into the holidays. I hope you are doing well. I hope you are finding peace and calm. Life isn't all peace and calm, but I hope you're having some of it. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's our superpower. Have a blessed day.